What did the very first experiment at Fixer.ai actually look like?
Oh God, it was quite terrible.
What was really striking to me is that Kameron posted on LinkedIn that they went from 0 experiments to 500 experiments in a very small amount of time.
If we don't solve this, are we going to get left behind? I think that's really important in our industry where things are moving fast. There's new startups coming all the time. The future of tracking is not as it used to be. It's not just one website. You've got tools that are going across someone's whole day or someone's whole screen.
So unlimited AI spend on Cursor, Claude Code, all of that stuff. I'm trying out recently, but we were one of the first to sort of adopt the Codex web agents. So if you imagine if you're running lots of tests, you're going to have lots of cleanup.
Yeah.
Which can...
In the code, you mean?
Yeah. Which can eat into the time. But what I found was you can actually one-shot a lot of cleanup via the Codex web agents. So the engineers can spend more time on new experiments without having to do all the chore-related things, like cleaning up experiments.
Is it like a Slack channel that people follow?
There's the customer feedback channel, I think, which is managed by our amazing head of support. And essentially that is like people who've been on calls with customers, or it might be the sales team. They just paste like, heard this, heard that, heard this, heard that. And that's where a lot of the insights come in from, like, ideas. I think that it's like making everything self-serve. Like the insights are self-serve, the data can be self-serve. And like more recently, we've just had a rebrand. So making sure like the design system is as self-serve as possible.
You basically want to be multi-disciplined. Traditional software engineering is basically dead at this point.
We have Rosie and Kameron joining from Fyxer.ai. And Fixer is a tool that kind of organizes your email and immediately labels emails and categorizes them. And what was really striking to me is that Kameron posted on LinkedIn that they went from 0 experiments to 500 experiments in a very small amount of time. So that's really amazing to chat about. And Rosie, I actually know from the growth space, and she used to be a consultant, but now she's in-house again. So that must have been a very interesting brand to work for if they convince you to do so. But what people might know you from is that you have your newsletter called Growth Dives, which is really great, where you dissect funnels and teach people what's in there and what we can learn from it. But let's dive into where you're working right now at Fyxer.ai. Maybe Kameron, I think you were there at the really, really beginning. What did the very first experiment at Fyxer.ai actually look like?
Oh God, it was quite terrible.
Love that.
Yeah, it was on our onboarding flow. So obviously with Fixer, you want everyone to connect their email straight away. Time to value is super important. So I was picking up sort of this leftover UI from the accelerator at HF0, which was basically like this pop-up. I was like, you need to connect your email. And we forced everyone to go through that. I tried to add some sort of messaging around, Fixer never deletes your emails, which is true, never sends on your behalf, these sorts of things. And what I found was it sort of did the opposite a little bit.
Oops.
As in people going, is that something that it's capable of potentially doing? So no, my first few experiments on the funnel were not successful at all.
Probably you learned a little bit about the process there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the tooling when I first joined wasn't exactly ideal either for experimentation.
What did you use?
So we had PostHog set up, which I inherited, and the issues that we ran into that was in the beginning, and PostHog have done a ton of work over the course of the year to improve their experimentation system. But what I found was they were using like a Bayesian approach, and they didn't have any like guardrail alerts or any sort of like sense checking on the system. So when I started running these tests, and it was based on PostHog events rather than, BigQuery data, like actual core metrics to us, I would see metrics just sort of like flip-flop a ton within like the first few days. And you might see significantly negative movements. And what you really want to know is, God, is this just like noise in the first few days of an experiment, or have I really messed up something here, especially at the top of the funnel?
So it created a lot of uncertainty on your side. Was it already declaring like, hey, this is significant, yes or no, those kind of things?
Had like no real power calculations in there at the beginning. It was just like alarm bells, everything's red, when actual fact, I don't think that there was any problem there.
And how is that now?
So we since have moved away from PostHog. At my previous place, we used StatSig a lot, and I really enjoyed the sort of ingestion from BigQuery, source of truth, sharing the metrics with product as well, and marketing having one idea of signups, etc. And so we moved away probably as fast as possible as I could get my hands on it to GrowthBook. We did try StatSig, but GrowthBook was actually quite an attractive option for us because of the pay per seat. And then we can set up our own ingestion. So we just pay for what we use. And it's been ideal. We get guardrail alerts when metrics go south. We get holdout groups. We get, triggering experiments based on attributes, like all of this stuff with coupon analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So I was pretty happy moving away from PostHog, and the actual migration to that was not that complex. So we still use PostHog a bit. It's actually used as an event bus for us. So the way GrowthBook works is you set it up and it handles the assignment of the variations, and it gives you back that data. And then you have to use your own event management system to then pass that across. So all we do is we call the native PostHog feature flag called event with the variation data passed from GrowthBook, which then feeds into our BigQuery, which then pulls back into GrowthBook for the analysis.
And Rosie, what was your first experiment at Fyxer.ai? Did you also test messaging to get people to sign up, or what was the first experiment you've seen?
I first worked with the Fixer team back in February, where I did a small project looking at the onboarding flow, and then I was a freelancer for a couple of months before summer. And when I came on full time, I was mainly working on emails, and so there's like an A/B testing part of Customer.io, which is what we're using for emails. And it's a really easy place to start because you can just do it without anyone else. Like, I don't code. In terms of being able to experiment, you want to do things as quickly as possible because, as Cam said, you just don't know whether something's going to win. And so you want to do it as fast as possible. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to run A/B tests here, subject line, copy, design. Do we even need a good design? Should it be a plain text email? I can't remember the exact first one, but it was probably a subject line test that took like 2 minutes. And then it does the analysis for you. And it's not necessarily the best in the world, but it's more about, can we get some learnings around what messaging works for customers? Maybe we can generalize that to other parts of the product, maybe not. So that was the first couple months of Fixer. And then I moved more into product-led sales and working on lead generation for the sales team, and then a bit more in SEO. And so experiments for me was mainly A/B testing Customer.io, and then trying to get sales calls booked in with the team. And then I kind of just moved on, moved around the business. But I also think it's about, because I always was very generalist, and I used to be a growth manager or a product manager. And in other businesses, you might work with an engineer to run experiments. And at Fixer, that's not necessarily how it works, because you've got people like Kameron and the rest of the growth team and a lot of the product engineers who are capable of just doing the whole product development process and growth process like solo, and like moving around and working out where's highest impact. And so as someone who's not an engineer, it's a case of being like, what does the team need? Because obviously they don't need those skills that I used to do. So like, what's the other skills that people might need? And so it was a case of coming in, working out what could be tested quickly, what was a little area that was easy to just like bash loads of tests out. And then like a few months later thinking, okay, what is it that people need? Is it more around user research? Is it more around strategy? Is it more around helping with ideas, making sure we're testing a lot of different products? There's loads of different channels where people can get inspired and things like that. So first test, subject line, most recently, lots of different things. But it's been really interesting. I've probably done like 4 different roles.
Did you both already have experience with A/B testing before coming to Fyxer.ai?
Yeah, so I've been doing growth engineering for like 6 or 7 years at this point.
Thought you were going to say since you were like 15 years old or something.
No, I wish. Yeah, and that's a heavy, like, autonomous A/B testing role. Previously worked at like a pharmaceutical, like e-com health tech company called Newman, where it was basically how many people can you get through the funnel and obsessing about funnel steps there. And then before then, like Trey, and that was more like sales, lead gen, and then right back into startup life of another AI company called Catalog.
And Cameron, what do you think, in your opinion, are the biggest mistakes when starting with experimentation from your experience?
Not having a really good data layer. Just like before you even start running experiments, you need to have an amazing insight into your just product data, who are your customers, what's happening. The biggest mistakes, obviously, apart from ensuring that your experimentation system is ready to go from like AA testing and these sorts of things, is just being the type of growth program which throws stuff at the wall because they don't have any of the insights or charts or the ability to ask questions. That's where I've seen the biggest wins, is when engineers take like a day or two and just dive into the data, find a hypothesis, and then maybe launch like 3 or 4 tests. Really going deep on that.
And Rosie, you have a totally different perspective. What do you think are common mistakes to avoid?
I think the mistake depends on who you have in the team. Previously, there's no way to do it perfectly, and I don't think anyone's cracked it. I think that you've got kickoff problems, like can you actually do it? You've got the data problems, can you actually measure it? Do you know where you're looking? You've got the scaling problems, which is like, can everyone do it to the highest level? But I think the problem I see most frequently is speed, just like not being able to get stuff out the door. Like previously when I was working with clients or in previous businesses, it was just the pace being quite slow. Maybe too many cooks. I think a lot of the time you need like 1 or 2 people. Like if you've got great growth engineers or product engineers, 1 person, but you don't necessarily need huge squads to do things. And then for me, it was about not working on the right part of the funnel. So a lot of people might be working on something small. I think this happens quite a lot in product where you might be working on, we need to improve this, but it's like, okay, well, if 5% of people see that, is that the best place to be working? I think at Fyxer, we now have the luxury of a much bigger team. But previously when I've worked, like, for example, I think one of the first big A/B, when I first worked in A/B testing, I was actually just doing the analytics for after the tests. And I'd be like, hey, what was the hypothesis? They were like, what hypothesis? And so that was the first issue I came across. The second issue I came across was like not being able to get tests out the door for like 4 months. The third issue I came across was we were like testing. We were like, why isn't this metric moving? Why, we've done 5 paywall tests. Like, paywall, we're not getting many more people buying. And then realized it was like the paywall was hidden way further. This was really early in my career. We'd done loads of like, maybe it was a month of paywall testing, and then realized that it was just the paywall placement. I was like, so obvious. But it's kind of like, there's so many different problems depending what team you're in. That team I was in, it was just me and this other engineer. And we had like full autonomy. We had a big goal. We had very little data, but we like just chipped away at it and we're going in the right direction. And I think we did like 90 tests in like half a year, which for us at the time, small team, like not a lot of resources, it was like really good. And so, yeah, I think the problems with A/B testing depends on who you're working with, what the structure of the company is, how big it is, how talented people are, how autonomous.
Now that there is a bigger team, so you can address multiple parts of the website, multiple parts of the funnel, etc. How do you use prioritization? Like, how do you know what to focus on the coming quarter?
So that changes depending on whether you ask growth or product.
Okay.
So on the growth side, there's obviously targets that come down from the top, and those are usually quite the same from a growth perspective, which is increase like new user revenue and increase existing user revenue, NRR, and new revenue we want to go after. The way that the team is structured from a growth engineering perspective is each engineer owns a specific like vertical or like funnel stage or platform or feature. We want full ownership there. So each engineer is required to do a sort of DRICE prioritization. So DRICE is in like detailed DRICE. So what I want them to do is, yes, you have reach. Yes, you have conversion rate, impact and confidence. I'm like, we can really nail those down. Like when you say impact, let's talk about MDs. Like what's the minimum that we could lift this metric by or like measure within like 2 weeks? And then from there, can we estimate revenue? Or if it's quite a complex thing, like a PLG feature, can you actually work out how much we might get in terms of new emails sent and what's the average open rate of those emails? And then who signs up as additional users? Like how much are we actually going to generate? And what you usually find when the engineers do this is their entire prioritization sort of flips. They start thinking more about high leverage places rather than just feature, which is a common mindset for developers.
Yeah, so prioritization helps to do that.
Prioritization and the ability to just very easily get answers to questions, which we have with like a data science AI bot.
Smart. And you also said that it differs from product prioritization?
Yeah, so the product team's grown a lot recently. So when Kay joined, for example, we've got 3 founders. We've got 2 brothers, Rich and Rich, and then we've got Matt, who's the CTO. Cameron, Matt, and another engineer called Josh, were like the early engineers. And so when you've got a smaller team, it's kind of like, this is what we're building. This is the vision. This is like, because our goal is to remove the burden of admin, so our target customer can work as fast as possible, faster than they think, as fast as they think. And so when you're doing that in the early days and you're building your core feature set, it's like, well, we just need to do this. It's straightforward, especially when it's founder led. And because it's like, this is the original insight, we built the business, therefore this is what we're building. And as you start to grow features, more things to keep up with, you get lots of different sources of information as well. So we've got the support team, the sales team, the success team, we've got the data, and then we've got people who are talking to customers. So that's like 5 different ways that you can know how things are going. And so more recently, in the past 3-4 months, looking more at like, okay, if we're to do like a big sweep of all the information we have, like, where are people getting stuck? What are the big themes? What are the most painful themes, the most frequent themes? And trying to relate those to the core metrics. So if we're looking at churn, or if we're looking at conversion to paid, it's like, why don't people convert to paid? Why do people churn? And it's like a big macro analysis that we started doing at the end of kind of like mid-end of last year. Just pinpoint like 10 big themes. Like, we think these are the reasons that cause churn. And then just counting them. Okay, this comes up most frequently, and then this one's most painful. There's also another prioritization, which is, if we don't solve this, are we going to get left behind? I think that's really important in our industry where things are moving fast. There's new startups coming all the time. So it's a case of, right, what metric are we moving? Why aren't we moving that metric well? Like, what are the big 10 themes? Ranking them by frequency, ranking them by pain. You'll find that because we're in people's inboxes, it's a very emotional place. And so like, when we're inaccurate with something, it's very painful, and it results in a lot of trust being lost. So for us, it's a case of pain, frequency, and then strategy. Does this create some sort of unlock for us? Or if we don't solve this, are we at risk from another competitor? So that was like a big macro analysis saying like, okay, we're hiring these people. Where should they work? We're working on these things now. What should we be focusing on? And as the team grows, it's a case of going from that kind of founder-led product development to still founder-led product development, but one that's like insight-led, based on the data, tries to prioritize and just revisit. So we've got a very, very short timeline, same as growth engineering, where previously I thought, a particular feature would take 2 months and it takes 2 weeks to build.
Mm-hmm.
So prioritize, like classic prioritization frameworks that take a while, kind of fall down the drain. You've just got to keep doing it all the time. So what I want to work on more is like, how can we make sure we're always finger on the pulse with the biggest problems and what they might be causing in terms of the commercial metrics. But because we're scaling quite fast, it's always a bit of it's a process. We're getting there. But I think we're in a really good place, having got all the amazing input from all the different teams, like success, sales, support, data.
It's super interesting how you're going from completely founder-led to growing into something bigger. And I think in a way you're leveraging data as well to do that in a sustainable way. I wonder how, Cameron, how do you see this? Before it was like probably top down, the founders tell you what to do, what's going to happen. Maybe you were a big part of that. But is it now also changing now the teams are growing?
There's definitely more process as of recently. Obviously, there's growing pain with every company that's gone from like 5 people to 50 people and above, especially now that the engineering team's like 23 people at the moment. And we had like 2 people start last week. Yeah, at the beginning, it wasn't actually that very top down. Like, I was just given a lot of trust and freedom to just execute on experiments.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted to not think about the growth engineering side of things. They're like, Cameron, just go optimize, do what you need to do. So Matt and Arch can think very deeply about the product. And I feel like that split is still here today. If like Rosie's on about, long-term strategic value, and I'm more about like, how can we get wins? We need to move this metric to here, and build adoption. But that split from the very start is still how the company is sort of structured today in terms of R&D.
Yeah, let's focus on that speed that you have, Cameron, because I think you are mostly at the core of going from 0 to 500 experiments. Is that true?
Yes.
Can you explain us how did you do this? Because I've heard another podcast where you said we have those verticals, so everyone dedicates themselves to a certain part of the flow journey funnel. But then what else do you do in order to run a lot of experiments really, really fast?
So it comes down a lot to not having like any process whatsoever.
Really?
The engineers, they own, let's say, the onboarding flow, and that one engineer has no product manager, no like retro planning session. It is just you are like a founder. The onboarding flow is your company. Like I'm the investor. I'm going to check in on the onboarding flow engineer and I'm going to be like, hey, is it progressing? Is it losing money?
But that's maybe also something, right? Is that then ownership or freedom that creates this speed in a way?
Complete ownership. So decentralized as much as possible. Because what I want is for them to build up the knowledge from running all these tests, become an expert in that area. But also we give engineers the tooling, the process. We don't get in their way. So unlimited AI spend on Cursor, Claude Code, all of that stuff. I'm trying out recently, but we were one of the first to sort of adopt the Codex web agents. So if you imagine if you're running lots of tests, you're going to have lots of cleanup.
Yeah.
Which can,
In the code, you mean?
yeah, which can eat into the time. But what I found was you can actually one-shot a lot of cleanup via the Codex web agents. So the engineers can spend more time on new experiments without having to do all the chore-related things like cleaning up experiments.
That's smart.
We also have a reliability team, shout out Josh, who basically ensures that all the growth engineers aren't tanking the company. So part of their sort of remit is developer experience, deployments running smoothly, because if you're deploying a lot, you're going to have big queues of deployments. It's going to get in the way. You're not going to be able to scale as the team grows. And just like poor platform stability. So with them, I can just focus my team on just being as fast as possible. Each developer is an ex-founder, which really helps because they're so proactive in terms of their background and super impatient. They also have like a good gut, natural UI, UX sales skill from being a founder, which is paramount to being able to do really effective experiments. Sometimes I have to instill data into them, but a lot of the people in the engineering team have real good SQL skill to be able to find insights as well. So it is just like one autonomous unit of execution. And I try to give them as many AI tooling and whatever they need in order to get experiments out as fast as possible.
I was going to say, you having come in and seen like the way it works, it's like, damn. Like when someone new joins, it's normally like they've got a PR on the first day and like they normally like launch something on the first day. That was like the old tradition of like when you join, like got to do something on the day. So like the productivity, just like a really high quality of people. And so everyone just works as their own squad in themselves. And like Kay set up this experiments channel. And so you can see like this live hypothesis, screenshots, assumptions, like success metrics, and then it gets posted when it's done, gets posted when it's done. So like the whole company, we can see it's like a feed of like all the experiments that have won or lost and won or lost. And like you can comment in there, you can ask more questions. It's like linked to where it's from. And so every growth engineer has that, and the product team as well is starting to do that more and more, like also post like what's happening, what's live, and also the marketing team trying to do that as well. So it's really created the start of the culture, which is like do things as fast as possible, automate it as much as possible, like let people know what you're doing, but ultimately like no barriers, just go. And I previously I said founder led, I meant more in like great vision, not necessarily it's top down. It's I think still across, it's very like we're trying to say like this is where we're going. So all the smart founder engineers that we have can just go in the same direction and just build as fast as possible in that kind of straight line. So I think the founders are still very involved in terms of the vision and the product and like what we want to build, but still do give people autonomy once there's clarity on like this is what we're building. Great, everyone just go. So I think that's it. And I think I think we're 70 people now, got the latest. And like, we're just growing out of the office as well. It's like,
Yeah.
So I think it's that fine line between like speed, autonomy, great people, having no process, but just the right amount of process so that you like, everyone is just empowered to do good work. without any blockers.
And that kind of feed that you talked about, what kind of tool is that in? Is it like a Slack channel that people follow? Yeah, okay. So, and there people see when tests go live, what won, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so it's a habit that I picked up from my previous places where I was just like super transparency at all times with the experimentation program. So we post when we launch, we have like a little emoji system, like a green circle when something goes out with a link to the linear ticket, which holds the experiment spec. Post hypothesis, who's targeting images of the control and treatment variant, and then the metrics we're going after, the primary, like the measurement metrics, if it's interesting, and then guardrails. And that has been super helpful. Like support, sales, being like, this thing is just released. That's good to know when customers contact me and be like, what is this experiment? And what it's also managed to do is build a lot of trust with the Growth Eng team. So it's allowed us to be sort of left alone a little bit at times, where it's like, oh, we have this problem. Oh, the growth engineering team is like, they're nailing it recently because they post all these experiment wins. Let's just get them to do it. Oh, or don't bother them. Like they're busy shipping stuff, as you can see. So it really brings attention to what we're doing as well, rather than we're squirreled away working and nobody sort of knows the impact that we're having.
The other channel I would say that's very helpful is the ideas channel. Well, actually, no, there's 3 channels that are great. The experiments channel, which is like there's like 5+ things in there a day. So like if you don't get after it for 2 days, you've got a lot of reading to do. There's the customer feedback channel, I think, which is managed by our amazing head of support. And essentially that is like people who've been on calls with customers, or it might be the sales team. They just paste like, heard this, heard that, heard this, heard that. And that's where a lot of the insights come in from, like ideas. The other one is just product ideas channel, which is just like screenshots of like, hey, tried this is interesting. And so there's lots of sources of information that are openly accessible for everyone, and people can comment, tag people, hey, great idea, should we try this? We've already tried that. This is how it went, linked to the experiment. So I think it's kind of like how do you like surface the right information for the right people to inspire, but also allow people to feel like they can input at the right time. So people feel like I can share ideas with the team, and they can get listened to, but I don't have to get in the way. So I think it's an interesting, like, where do you share the right information to like inspire people and give ideas?
I mean, just you guys sharing this is already super inspiring, and the energy that's behind it and the idea of the channels, it's simple, but apparently it works very well for you and people are able to tap into customer insights every day. I think that's something that I haven't seen at many companies at all, like that accessible. One thing I do hear a lot is people are often scared of quantity hurting quality. So if you run a lot of experiments, that must be bad for quality. What do you guys think about that?
So pre-AI coding, yes. As in like a developer can only hold so much in their mind and dedicate towards an experiment or a piece of UI. The time to getting something out becomes so dramatically small that that's no longer an issue. I can't even begin to like, we've got AI agents like Opus 4.6, one-shotting entirely nice UIs that fit our design system would have taken a developer 3 days to do before like all of this
Yeah.
AI stuff. So yes, if we didn't have the latest AI models, for sure, because there's only so much a human can do within the week, but we've managed to 10x that in terms of capability. So it's less like you obviously hit diminishing returns because there's only so much you can test in one place. So there is still that part, but yeah, I don't think the quality of an experiment is diminishing, only if the developer's not, or the person who's running it is not thinking about having a good hypothesis and doing the background behind it and targeting the right people for the experiment, like actually setting it up. If they're rushing through that bit, then there's no point doing it entirely.
Do developers also do that? Like they do research or look into data?
Yes, I applaud that. So you spend less time manually coding anymore, like try and automate as much as possible that part. And then we have a Claude code, which is trained on our data schema of a database, which is then able to write SQL to then query the database, do a bunch of Python to give us insights. So you might be like, do users that answer more emails end their trial at a higher rate? The data science agent will be able to go away, find the relevant tables, like the user table, the email tables, and do that segmentation analysis for you, which might have taken again, 2, maybe 3 hours of digging through and then stick it in a Jupyter notebook to try and find some insights. Whereas now it can just do that. So there's no excuse for the developers not to be doing the research.
Yeah, I think that it's like making everything self-serve. Like the insights are self-serve, the data can be self-serve, and like more recently we just had a rebrand, so making sure like the design system is as self-serve as possible. Because ultimately, if you've got great people who can move fast and everything's available, then they should be able to continue the quality. So I think it's about allowing people to self-serve across like research, insights, UI, and I feel like as you scale it, always you're like something that works when you're 10 might work until you're 100, then we might have to revisit. But I kind of feel like the team does move. Like if something needs to change, it changes. So it's kind of like, yeah, I think it's about having low ego as well, making sure you're like, yep, this one didn't win, no worries, like go and do something else. Or like, oh, that one's kind of ugly. Okay, we'll just update it. Like it's like, cool, okay. There's that kind of like bias to just change it or do it or rerun it or give it a glow up, whatever. I think the quality can just remain high if everyone can just have everything they need.
So I've heard a couple of things how you are speeding up your workflows with AI. So first of all, the codex cleanup of old experiments and old stuff. Then you have this database that you can just ask questions about why do people churn, whatever. What else are key elements that you created with AI that speed up your process?
Very neurotic about any manual process being automated.
Okay.
Whoa, where do I start? The posts that I write on Slack are just one big prompt.
Yeah.
So I use the Linear MCP to access Linear, grab the ticket, and it writes the Slack markdown for me. The same with when we get the results. So I have an agent check which column it is in Linear, whether it was a win or a loss when we drag it to, and we put an image of the results in the tickets. We always have like a database of experiment results essentially. And the agent, we use like a vision model to look at the results and actually write the results. So we want to post like the full like bullet points of metrics and results so everyone can see what happened.
And it concludes if it's a winner, yes or no?
We still do that, just there's a nuance to that you probably couldn't understand, but it's able to look at where it is in Linear in terms of like whether it was a win or loss or from GrowthBook, and then actually look at an image of the results, pass it down, format it correctly for us. And then,
Linear is a project management tool? I actually don't know it.
Yeah, it's like Jira, but
okay, got it.
Better. And everyone should use it.
Yeah, it's like if Notion and Jira had a baby. It's very easy to use.
Are you guys affiliated in any way?
No.
Okay.
If we want to be Linear,
sponsor my newsletter.
As someone that heads up the experimentation team, staying on top of all the running experiments becomes a bit of a problem when everyone's running so much. So what I've done is use ChatGPT agent mode, which has a browser which can access GrowthBook each day. GPT models are really good at instruction following. So it'll run for like an hour, clicking through each experiment, looking at the results, and then compile a report to send to my email. So I can just look and just be like, okay, is there anything that's like on fire or anything I need to be made aware of, rather than having GrowthBook ping me separate emails if anything's broken guardrails.
Are there steps in the process that you still do manually? I think also concluding the test you said. Is there more that is hard to automate?
I think the hardest part is the visual design of the test. Like still the CRO psychology of like, it should be like this, writing copy that converts. All of that stuff is yet to be automated away. As much as AI promises that, it's still a very human, empathy-led process. So that's the part which takes up the most time. No, I think apart like the code part is pretty much one shot at this point, but the actual visual understanding and planning of the experiment is still has to be human led because it's about the thinking there.
Yeah. And something interesting I also heard you say was time to value. So it sounds like this is a metric you guys have, time to value. How does that work? How do you measure it? How do you improve it?
So I've been digging into a lot of what makes someone active in Fixer. It's an obsession for most growth teams, which is how do you make someone a power user? And working backwards from our power user characteristics, finding the one sort of action, which is like something about sending emails. I can't give it away, obviously, but it's something about sending emails. And we'll obsess of how long it might take someone to connect their inbox and do that action. Because we know if they do that action, then from like a long 6-month cohort analysis, we know that they're more likely to retain.
And Rosie, do you also focus on that metric in products, like time to value?
Yeah, we've been doing our metrics are really hard sometimes with AI products. I don't know if you heard of just vibes. Like trying to find the right metric to target toward is like sometimes a 3-month thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're in a really good place at the moment. I can't tell you the exact metric, but last year we had a metric, like move towards that. And like we're in another stage of maturity, which is like what in the user behavior is what's the metric for that user behavior. And I think like with a lot of metrics, it's easy to cheat them. Like you could just go for 100% on this, but actually it's not commercial. There's no commercial value there, or there's no user value. We've just done something else great. And so I was really interested in what Kate was talking about as well with time to value and trying to get the like Facebook's 10 friends in 7 days or friends in 10 days. Like what's the thing you need to do and how many times you need to do it within your first 7 days? And it's all a continuum. You could pick anything. I don't necessarily mind what it is, as long as it's really clear and it's high enough in the funnel that you can get people to focus on it. I think for me, metrics, whatever your metric is, decides what you build. And so if you're building the wrong things, I think you have to ask if the metric's right. And it's so hard to get the right metric, have good definitions, know that that data is actually right, like have done the work to know if that's commercial value as well as user value. So I think it's just a long process, but I think we're in a really good place now. But I think it's ever evolving. The data team is growing. We've got 3 people. We used to have just 1. I think it's going to double.
It sounds like the team is growing as we sit here talking.
Genuinely, we're running out of
people.
desks. And so, yeah, I think activation is super important. And then like what links to retention. And I was like recently, for example, trying to look at what's the activation metric? And I talked about emotion in the inbox. And I'm like, what's the leading indicator for someone has just really freaked out by this product? Because we go into people's inbox, we label all your emails, move the stuff that you don't need to see and surface stuff that you need to do, and then start doing it for you. And that whole thing is very confusing for some people and very scary for some people. And the extent to which we can make that onboarding not just being like the screens you see to get you to connect your email, but like the first 48 hours in your inbox. And so getting to a place where people are calm enough, trustworthy enough to let us do that good work to reduce the admin is really hard for not just the activation metrics of what do they need to do, but also those metrics for I call it inbox shock, where you've got in there for the first time and you're like, holy crap, no thanks.
Because everything is different, right? It has colors, labels, some things are moved away.
It's just unnerving for some people. Like AI products are like we like in the tech scene, we're like, yeah, sure, we'll use this, but like not every customer's like that. And so I'm not just interested in the activation metrics, the commercial metrics, our North Star metrics, but the leading indicators for like we've scared someone here. And so like just having that whole metric suite is just so clarifying. I think it's always a continuous process as you like the company grows, trying to get more accurate, more.
And what's probably hard for you guys to measure is behavior inside the inbox, or are you able to track that as well?
To some degree.
To some degree, yeah.
Okay. What kind of things can you actually track there then?
Do you want to take that one, Rosie?
So we work within Gmail and Outlook, and so we are at the behest of them. Whatever they would like, data would like to give us, it's not all the data that I would like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the big challenges will be just tracking. Like, what can we track?
Yeah.
Do we know when someone's done this action and this action? Because at the moment, I would say, because I used to work in mobile apps, it's really straightforward to like put events in. Like you can see scrolls, you can see scrolls, clicks, you can see time on page, you can see every single bit of detail, probably too much detail. And I think we've got like 30 to 50% of what I'm used to in terms of how visible things are. And so like, I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for what we do. And I think for like other agentic AI products as well, it's how do you like, if products are less just one app, and they're across your whole workflow or your whole desktop, your home mobile, I think like the future of tracking is not as it used to be. It's not just one website. You've got tools that are going across someone's whole day or someone's whole screen. So I don't think it's something that it's only us are not struggling, but having to deal with.
Is there anything we haven't touched upon in our conversation yet? If you want to teach people how to go from 0 to 500 experiments, for example, anything else you'd like to share?
0 to 500.
You needed the team to do 500, right?
I needed the team to do 500. Yeah. I did 124.
In a year?
In yeah. Let's
Yeah.
say yeah.
That's also my max, honestly. It was about 100, 150 with one person. And then after that, yeah, there's just a limit. It might have changed.
The Growth Eng team did 90 per engineer, and then so we did like 360, and then the rest were handled by product and marketing. Along the way, it hasn't been like perfect. I want to get out there, like doing very fast experimentation is not always the answer in every single case. Taking the time and setting up the process, right? Smooth is fast. Like you need to set up everything first. Like it's fine when you're one person, like me at the beginning. In the first 4 months, I can go full on because I've got the entire funnel. So when I'm running 120 experiments, it's across everything. Whereas when you've got engineers focused in a particular area, you then have to worry more about like velocity versus win rate and try and keep some sort of like level there of like 25 to 30% around that mark in terms of win rate to what's going out. Because what will happen is they'll just start layering stuff in, bugs will occur. So you need to set up the correct processes like code review bots or integration tests to make sure the flows are still working. A bit of risk in terms of moving really fast. And that's why we keep people very focused in a particular area.
Rosie, anything we've missed?
No, I just think it's the people, like hiring the best people, as Kay has done. And it was so new to me as someone who was previously a growth manager or a product manager, doing the hypothesis, like specking things out, like having people who can do the full thing is rare, quite hard to find. But when you find them, it's just like you might as well try and wait for a bit longer to find the right person who can run an experimentation like that versus hire someone who's going to be a bit slower.
And also the traits, the personality traits or experience was they were previously also founders, right?
Founder or worked in a growth team as an engineer or has been a growth engineer, which can come in many forms like marketing ops engineer or rev ops engineer that might have done a bit of product there as well. You basically want to be multi-disciplined because traditional software engineering is basically dead at this point. Like you're either going to fall into the product engineer bucket or the marketing engineer or a UX engineer bucket or marketing, these buckets where you're coming with another skill set because your time spent coding is becoming less and less and your actual time spent ideating is becoming more and more as you become like a manager of AI agents.
Well, thank you so much, Rosie and Kameron, for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And I guess we'll keep following both of you on LinkedIn because it's great that you both share your stories there and what you learned. So we'll be doing that along the way. And Rosie, of course, also has her newsletter. So go check that out.